Hello, this is Christopher Gelson, the founder and the director and the lead teacher of Protect Children Incorporated, and I want to thank you for taking time to listen to these guidelines. It's very important that children hear these guidelines as well, not just adults, but children as well. So if you have kids, I encourage you to get them and have them sit down and listen to these guidelines with you. You can even make up some popcorn, do something, sit back, make it a comfortable atmosphere, and listen to these guidelines and read along with them on our website, which is www.stopmolesters.org. There are certain sections that are directly for kids, warnings, lookouts, things to keep an eye on, and there's sections for parents, warnings, lookouts, things to keep an eye on, as well as some help for kids that may have already been abused or kids that are being tempted into child molestation and other things like that. So I want to encourage you to, like I say, get the kids and to sit back. It's going to take about an hour or so to go through this, but this is an hour that will result in the absolute protection of your children from child molesters and kidnappers. So I encourage you to get the kids and sit back and listen carefully. Section 1. A special message to parents. Knowledge is the best weapon in protecting your children, but without your personal responsibility and application, it is not much use. In one circumstance, when a certain child was molested, the parents were not knowledgeable or responsible at all. An adult babysitter was watching the child. The child's parents did not know that when the babysitter went out, she would leave it up to her son to watch their child. They did not know this person, and it turned out that he was molesting and abusing the child for many months. By the grace of God, the child had counseling and treatment, which provided a lot of understanding and healing, which prevented further abuse. Now, we believe that the reason why wisdom and healing is poured out is so that healing and education can be weapons in the fight against sexual molestation. Parents, watch your children. Please know their friends and their friends' families. Know who your child is with. Do not be ashamed to ask your children from time to time about their friendships and relationships with others. Please make sure you have phone numbers and addresses of who your children are with, and most of all, pray for protection. Section 2. Children that are a higher risk. Though all kids can be at risk of child abuse, either physically forced or emotionally forced, there is a pattern of abuse among certain children. Abusers are afraid of getting caught and also afraid of being rejected by the child, which would lead them to being exposed. Therefore, they seek the profile of a child that makes them feel like the child could be easily tricked and taken advantage of. Some of the items in this profile are: 1. A child from a broken or single-parent home. The abuser knows that there will be emotional pain that the child will not want to think of, so the abuser thinks that the child will accept sex as one way to forget. Number 2. A child that dresses in a way that is revealing of their groin or buttocks areas. This attracts the potential abuser and also gives an indication that the child is not responsible with their body. For an example, the pants being worn down off the hips so that the underwear or boxers are showing. Number 3. A child that has had their father leave and there is little or no contact. Keeping in mind that abusers can be male or female, the stats show that the majority are male, and this is because they understand that a male or female child will be longing to have a male attention and emotional connection. The abuser will use those emotions against the child. See, often what happens is the abuser will try to say, hey, I can help you forget about this, forget about your father, and this is how we can do it, and they'll try to lead them into sex. Number 4, a child that has much freedom in their neighborhood for large amounts of time, without the parents knowing their whereabouts. Abusers track and watch for children that don't appear to be well cared for or closely monitored by adults, thus they feel more secure and not getting caught. Number 5, a child that is easily trusting of every adult without caution. Though not all adults are looking to abuse children. If the child and parents aren't aware of the warning signs, they will not ever suspect anyone. Now, the abuser can see and sense this and feels more secure in trying to fool or draw the child into sexual situations. Children may want to trust easily and be around a male or female abuser in order to try and fill a void or a space in their heart and life that is left from a father or mother leaving. Number 6, kids who have been exposed to pornography or sex in the home. What this actually does is it gets a child thinking about stuff way too early, and it gets hormones excited and gets their hormones running at a young age, and that sets the child up for somebody to come along and try to expose it to them again, maybe an adult or someone like that, to try to come along and expose this to them, get the hormones running, and then introduce sex into the picture. A lot of kids are drawn into sexual molestation situations by being exposed to pornography. So if you know that your child's been exposed to pornography, or if their friends have been, I would be very, very cautious and very careful. Number 7, kids of parents that are not home for long periods of time. This is especially in the summer. Okay, again, if the kids are allowed to be out and wandering around and hey, just be home by 5 p.m., and that's fine. Well, an abuser knows this. And if they think that the parents trust the child so much that they don't have to know where they're at every hour, then the abuser feels more secure in drawing in that child. It might be with video games, it might be with whatever else, but they will try to gain access to that child and not be concerned that the parents are going to be checking in on the child for a while. So you got to know where they're at. Now today, cell phones are pretty common with kids. Don't always just be happy with texting. Parents, call your kid. Call them. Call every couple hours if you want. Just say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? So you can get an idea of the environment that the kid is around. Number 8, kids of parents that abuse drugs or alcohol. That's a pretty clear indication right there. If you have parents that abuse drugs and alcohol, then most likely there are other people around that abuse drugs and alcohol, and there are people that, when they're on drugs and alcohol, will do things to harm children. So if you and also parents that do drugs and alcohol are not watching their children. They're often neglecting their children, and there's more opportunity that the child is not emotionally connected to those parents and will try to seek that connection from another adult person. Section 3. Some warnings and measures for parents. A. Remember that nearly 90% of all sexual molestation case victims knew their offender. Okay, 90% of all sexual molestation victims know their offender. It wasn't some strange person down the road, the creepy guy in the house that nobody knows. Okay, in 90% of the cases, the child knew, so it was somebody that was close to them. In 10% of the cases, it was a biological family member. That's only 10% was a biological family member. Now, before your child spends time alone with an adult, make sure you talk to them about good touch, bad touch. Talk with them about good talk, bad talk. Make sure you take time to sit down and go over the warnings of this guideline with them. Make sure they understand that any sexual talking or joking toward them by an adult is wrong. See, parents are usually right on the money about, hey, if somebody touches you in a way that is wrong or is not comfortable, make sure you tell me. But what about the things that lead up to that? If an adult is telling sexual jokes and being sexual around a child, why? Why is that? Trying to get the child to maybe think about sex? Trying to open the door? Trying to test the child maybe to see if they're okay with it? They think it's funny? How far will the child go? So make sure your kids know that if an adult, this is a big thing, if an adult is talking to them about anything sexual, get away from them. Something's not right about that. C. It is very important to find out the motivation and personal reason why a particular adult desires to spend time with a child. Mentors, volunteer big brothers, or camp workers should make known the goals they want to reach by spending time with your child. Let's face it, it's just not normal for an adult of the same or opposite sex to want to spend time alone with your child without an openly stated reasonable and shown positive reason. Now, there are great people out there. There are great youth mentors. There's great youth pastors and big brothers and big sisters. There's other organizations. There's great people out there that do want to help children, but they need to be making, number one, they need to make it clear. Why? Why are they spending time with your child? What are they trying? Are they trying to positively impact that child? Are they trying to make a difference in that child's life? And somebody that has to be checked out, obviously. And that doesn't mean you let your guard down at that point. It means that once that child is spending time with that person, and hey, wants to go play basketball once a week outside on the court. Okay, that's fine. Well, when the child comes back, ask him about the game. And you see, and if the child knows that sexual talking is not okay, sexual touching is not okay, showing them pornography is not okay, all those different warning signs, and none of those things are happening, chances are it probably is a good influence on the child. But you have to inquire about it and don't let your guard down. D. Discuss the various tricks, threats, and lies that child abusers or molesters commonly use. We're going to refer to this more in Section 6. Make sure they understand and are aware of the warnings that are in this guideline. Make them certain that they can come to you without fear. Okay, it is a great idea to even test them on the guideline. But make sure your children know that if they come to you and say that somebody done something to them, you're going to believe them. There's a famous actor out in Hollywood who's been in the news a lot in the past few years who was abused. And when he came out and tried to tell his parents what happened, his father didn't believe him. His mother did, but his father didn't believe him. And that's very, very destructive. So make sure your child knows that you will believe them when they tell you. E. Make sure of the people and friends that your child are hanging around. This includes meeting the parents of their friends. Make sure you have numbers and addresses. Do the best you can to make sure your children aren't being exposed to adults that you don't know. Do not hesitate to check where you have to, making sure that any adults your children will be around don't have criminal records, especially sex crimes. This sadly includes church youth leaders, daycares, Boy Scout, Girl Scout leaders, summer camp staff, etc. Don't be afraid to make sure that the background checks have been done on the people your children will be with. You can usually do an online background check for around $20, and sometimes local police agencies have free database listings. Actually, these days you can find them pretty much for every state now. The emotional sin and sickness of a child abuser isn't just limited to a specific profile of a person. Your child comes home and says, hey, I want to go hang out at Johnny's house. Okay, cool. Where's Johnny from school? Yeah, okay, great. Well, do you know who else is living in Johnny's house? Do you know if Johnny has a crazy uncle? Or an older brother? Do you know who else is around your children? No, I never really thought about that. Well, it's a good idea to make sure you know who else is in that house before your child goes and spends time there. F. Know the names and ages of the friends that your children have. A fatal mistake is that when a child says, Mommy, I have a new friend, his name is Mark and he is really cool, and a parent says, oh, that's great, and never asks what the age of this new friend is. What if Mark is 45 years old? Right? I mean, you need to find out. G. Not every person that's older than your child wants to hurt your child, but you should know them, and they should be able to explain what their purpose is of spending time around and with your child. Even then, of course, you still should keep the warnings and lookouts in mind.